Hello, basketball fans. It's me, DC, here for Fantasy Basketball Analyzer, helping you break down who might be available on the waiver wire to get you ready for week 13 of the NBA and your fantasy season. We're not going to dilly-dally too much with it. If you haven't watched, I did do a preview of week 13. The link is right here. Break down the schedule, talk about some streaming options, stuff like that. The teams overall to attack without diving into the names, just the mini version of that episode, although you should go watch it. I spend time making these things for you. Denver, Golden State, Minnesota all stood out as the teams that you could pick a player up with and get at least 3 games out of, because there's 4 really good streaming days, so if you can capitalize on at least 3 of that without making too many roster moves, then you can fill in around there as needed. So starting with some options for the shallower league before we get in the available at least 50%. I'm saying shallow leagues, but this is, I guess, is every league. Just go double check you're not in one of these leagues. Klay Thompson's roster in 90% of leagues, which means there's 10% of leagues where Klay Thompson's not picked up yet and he's about to come back. That's crazy. Go make sure you're not in one of those leagues. You're probably not. They're probably dead leagues or something, but 10% is still too high for a player that's good. That's immediately like an imminent return, which will also just be fun to watch. So maybe I'm just excited about it, as hopefully most of you are, unless you hate the Warriors, but seeing good players play is great. Anthony Simons couldn't make the list because he's 57% rostered, but he might be worth a look. Portland's schedule is okay this week. They've got 3 games, 2 are streaming. They're not clustered together, but he's a valuable player and he's playing well right now. So I want to put him on your radar because he might be out there and you might be more interested in that. Also popular pickup, there was positive news about Kawhi's injury. He's at 57% rostered. That jumped 19%. As I said, he's ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule does not mean immediately returning, right? That doesn't mean that he's returning like Klay Thompson. And so let's think about the best case scenario. If you've got Kawhi and he comes back, and there's no chance he's playing on back-to-back games, right? He wasn't doing that before the injury. So best chance is what? He comes back for your fantasy playoffs. And then you can't count on if he's going to play every game if he happens to get a back-to-back or a rest game. The best thing you could do if you have him, and I do, I have him in one league where I'm in first place, and I've got enough injured spots, so I've just had him sitting there just in case, would be try and trade him now. I'm not saying pick him up to trade him, but his value feels like it's at its highest right now. I don't think he's actually going to be a valuable help to our teams, at least not a reliable one, if we even get him back. Him being ahead of schedule is not the same as him returning to NBA games, right? So if you've got Kawhi or if you got excited about it, I'm not faulting anyone, but I don't believe it. I think I'm going to try and make the trade. Also, separately, I'm noticing that my glasses are creating a glare, so we're ditching those for the rest of it. Okay, so for the below 50% section, the real section of the show, I'm going to start with a couple guys I talked about last week. I want to bring them up again. I was a little skeptical of it. They're playing well, and so you might still have interest. Nick Claxton's still out there. He's 47% rostered, so available in 53% of leagues. He's playing well. I'd prefer it in points league. It's not exciting numbers, but it definitely seems he's still in there. The minutes went down a bit. They did drop from like 30, 33 to 25, 23. But that's probably going to stabilize right there, and he's still viable. Last game he had 14-6. Before that he had 12-5. He's getting some steals and some blocks, so in category leagues, that is still interesting because he does fill it out a little. So there is usefulness there, but having a good big that's not going to hurt you. He gets, even when his free throw percentage can be low at times, because he's shooting 60% on the season, he doesn't take a ton of them, so he's not really going to negatively hurt you. So if you get good percentages and you're getting steals and blocks, that actually is pretty valuable in categories league. It's just not huge rebound numbers, which is kind of what I expect when I recommend a big. But 47% rostered. Brooklyn's got 2 out of their 4 games is streaming. They're at the start of the week, and I think he could have long-term value if you're looking for an alright, a solid big. Next, Kobe White. I was kind of doubting what was going to happen when the return happened, when all the guards came back. Well, he's now moved to the reserve role, and it's a small sample size, right? But I was worried he was going to drop off, not because he wasn't playing well, but because of the minutes and everything. And Caruso's not back, so that still might be true. But Kobe White came off the bench, was still involved, still got over 30 minutes a game. Those are all really good signs to me. He's 45% rostered. If he comes off of the bench and gets 4 threes, 21 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, like, that's great. He's not going to get you a ton of steals and blocks, but he's really in there. I mean, that stat line I just read, he had the unlikely event where he shot 87% from the floor. I would not count on that. So if you were to like sort by the 7-day average, it's going to be a little inflated. But both of these guys, Nick Claxton and Kobe, I wasn't certain on, but they made the list last week because they are players I like. And I think they're both viable pickups. The Bulls only have one of their 4 games of streaming, but they do have a 4-game week. And, you know, having good players on your roster doesn't hurt. The next 3 guys I got for you are a mix of useful, but also the streaming schedules, you know, favorable. Monte Morris is exactly 50% rostered, available in half of leagues. I already talked about how Denver's got a good schedule. They've got 4 games. 3 of them are on streaming days. So if you pick him up, you can probably get 3, if not all 4 games out of him. He's playing pretty well, but it's not exciting either. Last game he had 13, 3, and 4. Before that, he had 21 and 2 with 1 steal. I'm definitely more interested in a points league than I am in a category league, but I'll take anyone that is going to get me 4 extra games, even in a category league. If he's out there on the waiver and I've got an empty spot or someone with a bad schedule, someone I can slip in injured, I would give Monte Morris a look to see if he can just kind of pad some of those points, get some rebounds and assists, but, you know, I'm not expecting it ever to be above, say, 25 and 5 or something like that. That's kind of what I would put my ceiling at, hoping. And so I'm not super interested in having him all year for fantasy, but for this week, I think it could be good. Next guy on the list is another familiar name we keep talking about on the waiver show, Pat Beverley. I mentioned the Timberwolves have a pretty good streaming schedule, only 3 games, but all 3 are on streaming days. Pat Beverley's 38% rostered. Now, if I've got the graphic up right here, it actually lists him as out. I think it was just a rest game. It said injury. So he just missed Friday, January 7th. So hopefully he will be back. If not, don't do this. Read the notes, see what the updates are before that. But you can get 3 good games out of a solid contributor where you're definitely going to get points and assists and probably a couple steals. That could be really valuable this week. You get the 3 games on the right days, but also potentially going forward. I feel like his roster percentage is still artificially a little low because he was out and just people are dealing with so many absences that hopefully we're getting past into the second half of the fantasy season. But I feel like he's going to creep back up probably into that 60% range. It is my hunch. Maybe not this week, but if he has a good week, then maybe he will be there. Let's get some new names on the list. How about Brandon Clarke? 30% rostered. He's starting to play solid, if not exciting for fantasy terms. His minutes are increasing. He's more utilized on this Grizzlies team that's really coming together. In case it's not clear, I really like this Grizzlies team. But, 13 and 9, he had 11 and 4. Those 2 games I'm referencing right now, he got 4 blocks combined between those. That's pretty good. And the Grizzlies are having their great 5-game week right now, week 12, as I'm recording. It's the end of this, depending on when you're watching. It's still the weekend. If you pick up Clarke, you might be able to use him here at the end of your week 12. But even if you're waiting, he's got a pretty good matchup or set of matchups to take him into the next week. So he plays Golden State, Minnesota, Dallas. Dallas isn't technically on streaming day. It's a 9-game day, but you might be able to work him in there. So it's right there in the core of your week. If you're looking to get a pickup, get some rebounds, get some blocks, I think Brandon Clarke could be useful. Clarke is one of those guys that I do talk about sometimes on the show where I like him more as a basketball player, though, than I do as a fantasy asset, right? He had a time a couple seasons ago where he was playing really well and he was definitely a valuable fantasy asset. But I think him hitting 3s was part of that, which he's not really doing right now. He also had a really good field goal percentage. I think if we go back and looked at it, he had I don't know if his shooting luck or the situation or whatever, but specifically his floater was just falling way more than it should for a big. He just had a lot of close in shots that were going in. And I think it bumped up both his scoring and his percentages for fantasy and category leagues. Looks a little more valuable. But I do think he's worth a look. I'm not trying to crap on the guy. I'm suggesting you consider picking up for this week. But if he has a good game, I don't want to run away with man, I found my lotto ticket. This is going to be here all year. I think this is more a spot start if it's working for what your team needs. And then we'll round this out with Herb Jones. Have we talked about him yet in the waiver show? He's often on the list. I don't know if he's come up. He's at 49% rostered, so he's available in exactly half of leagues. I would take a look at him. He's playing really well. If I sort it over the last 30 days, his average in 8-category league is 66th overall. So while the Pelicans don't have an amazing schedule, they've got 2 good streaming days. They play Tuesday, Thursday, and he's the type of guy who could also retain value. So in prior weeks when we were dealing with a lot of guys out, health and safety protocols and stuff like that, I was giving you more of the Robin Lopez's and the pick it up and hope that they stay in and go. And this week I've tried to center more on players that either can help right now or maybe you're getting someone for the long term. We're at about 50% through our fantasy season right now. And so if there are some guys out there that you think can help, it might be time to look and start moving in that direction a little bit more. You know where you are in the standings, right? If you're up top, you can grab some flyers, you can hold some injuries. If you're a little bit lower, you got to stream and grind a little bit more because you want to get up there. You don't want to get, pushed out of your playoffs already. So depends on what you're looking for and what you need. If you got other questions, other guys I didn't bring up, please leave it in the comments down below or take it to Twitter. Happy to talk to you there too. I'm actually going to be out of town next week, so I'll still be available to reach, but I pre-recorded the Friday show. I won't forget about you. I'll be back in time to do the next waiver show. I'll still be watching basketball while I'm on the road. I just don't want to take all this equipment with me. Good luck finishing out week 13. Good luck on the waiver wire. Go out and win your week. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please hit the like button and leave a comment down below. It helps me grow the channel. If you want more videos like this, hit subscribe or even the little bell will give you alerts, and I'll be back soon with another video for you.